everyone, welcome back to my channel, Teresa's Crafty Cabana. So I am doing this little series with some Christmas ornaments that I'm making with my jelly prints. Today I'm making these stars. It's actually really just the one star in yellow, and then I had a tester one that I had done in white just to make sure I could put it together. And if you haven't watched my previous videos in this series, I've got the links for them. It's the little Christmas tree that I made with my green jelly printed paper and the poinsettia with the green leaves, and these are ornaments, or the tree can be tabletop decor. But getting into the yellow paper that I made, I just used some yellow craft paint, a little bit of a darker yellow and a lighter yellow, but they're pretty close in the color. So if you only have one color of yellow, I don't think you can even really tell that these are two different colors. My jelly plate wasn't cleaned after I did my red paper, so I just left what was left on the plate there, and I figured that will add to my jelly print. I always like mixing my prior jelly prints, whatever's left on the plate, with my next one. It just makes it look a lot more interesting. So here I've got a stamp set that I'm going to use this pretty star down here. And for all of my prints that I've been doing in this session, I'm pretty much just making DIY patterned paper. Mostly using stamps, but using some wood embellishments for some of them. For today's though, it's going to be just the stamp. So I just used my star, and I'm going to kind of speed this up a bit and just make a little pattern on the background here. Now, one thing I've learned as I was doing these prints is that as the paint dries, before it's fully dry, but when it's not like completely wet, you actually get a better impression with the stamps than if you do it right away. So I just noticed that some of my impressions after I let it dry just a little bit were looking a little bit better, or removing some of the paint better. I've got this little star I'm going to use to kind of fill in some of the gaps. And just as a reminder, if you're using stamps on your jelly plate with acrylic paint, just make sure you wipe off the paint as soon as you're done doing the stamping. I actually am stamping off onto the side on my roll-off paper, but you do want to make sure you clean that. I use a baby wipe for mine. Otherwise, if that paint dries on your stamps, you may have a hard time getting it off. I'm using a gold behind the stars, and that's what I'm going to use to pull this print. Again, I'm using my 8 by 10 inch gel plate, and this is 24-pound copy paper. And you see how it has all the red left over from my prior print, and I think that just gives it a lot of interest, as well as kind of being a pop off of the yellow, so it's not just all yellow. I like how it looks, and I like that you can see the shine of the stars because it's got the gold. So I cut it down, and it's just under 8 inches and just under 10 inches when you cut the border off completely. These are the other pages that I had jelly printed during this session that I turned into my other ornaments. So for today's, I went on to Pinterest. This is what I've been doing, is kind of looking at some Pinterest ideas that look like they're kind of hard to follow, and trying to see if I can replicate them, and then after replicating them, see if I recommend them. This one was actually in German, so if you can't read German or it's just going way too fast for you, you may have a hard time following this one. At almost every point on this one, I was like, okay, how far is she going in? Okay, how is she getting it to look like that? I was not following at this point just by watching the short. Now, some nice person had put the American measurements off to the comment on the right, and that one is like up at the top. So I used that as my kind of like starting point, and just kind of followed the video like step by step kind of slowly as I was putting mine together. So I'll show you in mine kind of like the steps that I took. I don't know if they're right because there really are a lot of steps missing to put this together if you really wanted to make this. So even though she does include the sizes that she's using. So here's what mine looks like after, and I drew on mine and did like little dots and everything because I was trying to make sure I had my measurements right. And mine you can take apart. I didn't glue it, so you can open it up, and I figured I will use mine as kind of like a template. So as I'm putting mine together, I can reference this one to make sure I'm cutting out my new one the right way. And on the end here, I used a marker to draw some of my lines because I thought it just wasn't very easy to see on the one that was in the tutorial. So to get started, I had some candied pecans. So I started with a candied pecan, and then I started writing down the instructions as I saw them on the comment. We're starting with an 8 1/4 inch piece of paper, and the other side is going to be 4 inches. Next, we're going to score our piece of paper, and you're going to score it every 3/4 of an inch or 0.75 of an inch. So here I have my page cut down. Now, I had originally started scoring this, and one of my score lines was off by 1. So as I do my tutorial, you will see I have extra score lines on mine. So if you just go slowly and do every 3/4 of an inch, yours should come out just fine. But it didn't really matter. Even though I had extra score lines, I was able to fold it just fine on my 3/4 inch fold. So here's where you're going to accordion fold all the way across. An accordion fold is just folding it back and forth. So each fold, you flip it, fold at that line, score it, flip it, and you just do that all the way till you get to the bottom of it. Okay, so this is what it looks like accordion folded. So the next step here, we're going to do another score. This time we're going to turn the paper the other way. So on the 4-inch side, we're going to score 1.5 inches on each side. Bringing back in my score tool here. So flip the paper, and 1.5 inches you're going to score down, and then I just turn mine and use it so that I can rest against the edge here, and do 1.5 inches from this side as well, and you're going to be left with 1 inch in the center. So here's your folds. I'm just going to go ahead and reinforce these folds just so I know where they are as I'm putting this together. Alright, so moving on to our next step. So here's where we're going to be cutting. We're going to cut a 1 inch, well, it's going to be really kind of like 1 inch triangles. It's hard to explain, but you're going to cut 1 inch triangles from each side. And what I mean by that is, I pulled out my Fiskars little mat because it's got these 1 inch squares on them. So remember, this was 1.5 inches down all the way to that score line. Well, we only want to go down 1 inch. So here's my little template. So here is 1 inch, and you're just gonna take and mark that from that fold. Again, this is 1 inch over here. And you just want to cut out this triangle right here. So I'm going to use my ruler so that I make sure I have a straight line. I'm marking where that center line is folded. And I'm just using my pencil just so that you could see what I'm doing here. If you're making this for yourself, you don't have to do the pencil mark unless it helps you. So I just folded that backwards, and then I'm just going to use my scissors to cut that little triangle part. Now, this is what it looks like she's doing in the video, is kind of like cutting these out individually. I didn't want to do that individually. So what I ended up doing was accordion folded the rest of the paper, folded what is now my template, and just used my scissors to cut all the rest of them all at the same time. Now, some of the points, they didn't actually cut pointy, so I just used my scissors and cut like 3 or 4 of them at a time and cut them till they all had a point. So I already learned a new lesson just from doing that one, and I'll show you what I did on this side. So I measured down 1 inch. I drew my line from the corner to the 1 inch mark. And then I started on the corner and cut down. And that way all of my little points to my star cut out perfectly that time. So that's how I would recommend doing it. Then I folded in all of my little pointy parts. Now, I will say, as I was folding this, I folded it to where it was white on the outside. Where you're going to want to save some time is flip it so that you're working with the white on the top and the colored jelly print paper on the bottom. But I fix that later on in the video. So here we need to actually cut off some little pieces at the end here. So you can see this is the opposite side, and this side here, she cuts off these 2 little pieces. And again, you can kind of see from all my markings on my other one, there's actually a fold and then a cut, a fold and then a cut. So you're just gonna, I'm just drawing a line with my pencil so I can see where I need to cut off those 2 little flaps. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. So here we're going to score again. Now we're going to score from the center line to the cut line. And again, I'm just using my pencil to show you what that looks like. So the cut mark where we did our little triangles, all the way down to where the score mark is. You're just going to kind of score that right there. And then you're going to reinforce that score by folding it both ways. So we're folding it down one way, pinch it, and you can use your bone folder here if you want to, but I just ended up pinching these little corners. Then you flip it over and you pinch it again. Here's where I used my bone folder. And then you get something that looks like this. And I just erased my pencil marks. And I found it easiest to kind of score down one side the same way, then flip and score down the other way. Now once you're kind of reinforcing these folds, again, just fold them each back and forth, just so you're getting a crease there. Then you want to repeat this on the other side. And we're moving on to our final step, which is to basically fold our star and get it to take the shape that it's going to be. This to me was probably the trickiest part. The folds were doing fine. I had folded it completely wrong, the opposite way. Like I said earlier, I had the white side showing, but I had all of those folds kind of like created. So all I had to do for me was I had to like fold them the opposite way. So instead of showing you twice, I'm just going to show you the one time here, because by now I was kind of getting the hang of the folds anyway. So you basically, you fold out the little triangle tips, or I guess they're the star tips. So you fold those kind of like outward, and then you pop in where the little tiny triangles kind of meet. So just like this. So there's the little triangles that meet, and those fold up, and then where the larger triangles are, or the star tips, those fold out and they fold down. So you're basically accordion folding at this point too. Now here it wasn't kind of folding too great for me, so I had to go in and reinforce some of my folds, but once I got those kind of like accordion folded down, it started taking shape. So it does take a little bit of kind of playing around with these folds, and then once it starts coming together, it goes pretty easily. Plus I think if you make several of these, it'll definitely be a lot easier once you get the hang of this. As far as difficulty goes, I don't think that this would be super easy for kids. Maybe over the age of 12 would find this easy to do, especially if they're into paper folding. But I'd say under the age of 12, this might be kind of challenging. And for adults, I think the folds were nice and easy. Like I did, as far as like, didn't hurt my hands or anything to put this together. It wasn't like teeny tiny little folds. So I thought as long as you have the patience to put this part together, I think this was really just the hardest part. So if you figured out this part after you get all your creases and everything, then you're pretty much good to go. So here you want to just kind of tuck these corners in. She had actually cut hers off in the little demo and glued them. I didn't want to glue mine, so I just folded it, and that kind of gives it a little bit of something to rest inside the little groove here. So you just kind of push it in, and then once that's in there, you could glue it, especially if you feel like it's falling apart. But for mine, I just decided to leave it like that. And you already can see that it's got the star shape. If it feels like the star shape isn't quite right, just make sure you reinforce your folds. To make it an ornament, I just took some red and white twine. Mine was about 11 inches. I did a little knot close to the star, and then I did another little knot up at the top, and then this will be my little hole that I'll be able to hang on the tree. So here you go. And now you have a really cool looking star. There wasn't any glue or tape required for this one. You just kind of shape it a little bit. And what I really like too is that you have the jelly print on both sides of this star. So if you like the white look, that one's fine too. I think that one looks really cool. I think it would look neat with a brown piece of paper too, like a craft paper. But I really do like how it turned out with a jelly print, and I just think it looks so neat. It looks very difficult, and I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult than it was. And I think that this could be something that would be fun after, especially after you get the hang of it and do a few of them. So hope you enjoyed watching, and let me know if you would try this one, or if you've tried it before, if you thought it was easy to do. Stick around, I've got another one coming, and I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy crafting, y'all.